Ron Paul weighed in on the terrorist attack in France. Let's listen.
Is true. This is pretty obscene when it comes to violence, and libertarians are pretty annoyed by anybody who initiates violence. This is pretty bad. But in the context of things, France has been a target for many, many years because they've been involved in foreign affairs in Libya, and they really prodded us along in recently in Libya, but they've been involved in Algeria. So they've had attacks like this, not infrequently. So it does involve, their foreign policy as well. But when people do this, the rejection of the violence has to be made, and with that, I agree.
All right, but let me take it a little further here. Whether or not, the people, we don't know, we haven't had a claim of responsibility. Let's say they're either Al Qaeda or ISIS, or Al Qaeda or ISIS trained, or they did it on their own, and they're very sophisticated, apparently. But they're Al Qaeda or ISIS inspired or trained. Okay.
Right.
So every country that has a foreign policy that the animals don't like should expect that this could happen, and do you put the blame at all on the countries?
No, I put blame on bad policy.
All right, understand that I agree with libertarians on foreign policy 100%. They are non-interventionists, by and large, and I'm a fairly committed non-interventionist. I think that's clear if you go by my record and you go by what I've said on YouTube and on the show since the beginning of the show. So I'm not saying this with any malice towards Ron Paul on this issue, but, dude, you gotta stop with the cut-and-dried copy-and-paste answers for every single thing that happens on this issue. Like, there's this thing that people do where they're always looking to invoke their own pet issue and throw it out there and say, no, this is my stock reply, so this has to be the right answer. That it's because of the foreign policy that this happened. But the world is a complex place. Each thing that happens, whatever it may be, you have to look at that thing individually, and you have to judge it on its own merits. So is there a lot of Muslim radicalization that has happened because of U.S. foreign policy? Because we've killed so many civilians, that we radicalized people who were otherwise moderate, and as a result of that, there's been a net increase in terrorists and terrorism since the war on terror began. Yes, that's absolutely true, and I talk about that more than anybody else. But in this particular case, with the Paris shooting, can you say it's because of foreign policy? Absolutely not. Look, you just can't, man. There are some articles out there where they say, well, the leader of one of the groups said that he was radicalized because of what happened at Abu Ghraib in Iraq. But that really kind of falls apart because France was against the war in Iraq. So France is in no way responsible for the war in Iraq. So to attack them for what happened at Abu Ghraib makes no sense. And my main evidence for you can't invoke foreign policy in this specific case of the Paris shooting with the Charlie Hebdo shooting is that they told us. Not only did they say Allahu Akbar at the shooting and at the scene of the terrorist attack, which of course shows that they're fundamentalist Muslims because they're killing people as they say that, but they also said, we have avenged the Prophet. And they asked by name for the cartoonist that drew the picture of Muhammad. So in this particular case of fundamentalist terrorism, fundamentalist Muslim terrorism, it is in the name of their religion and in the name of their ideology that they did it. You cannot say, well, let's find a way to bring in French foreign policy in Algeria and Libya. I mean, France is also fighting in Mali. They're fighting Al-Qaeda in Mali. So yes, they are doing some interventions. But by and large, they're way more non-interventionist than the U.S. Nobody comes close to us in terms of doing foreign intervention. So it's kind of an excuse. It's kind of a cop-out to give another reason for non-intervention. And look, I want to be clear. I'm with libertarians on this 100%, but don't invoke this argument when it doesn't fit. You know, it's like taking a round hole and trying to fit a square peg in it. You can make a weird sex joke out of that. I'll bite my tongue from doing it. Not the right time or place. But there's plenty of times where you can invoke that argument. that we are the problem, we are creating more terrorists, and we need to stop, we need to mind our business. That's what we should do. And we should be doing that right now. But it's not the case that we should be doing it because this terrorist attack in France was linked to our foreign policy or France's foreign policy. That's just not true. So you have to be accurate when you talk about these things, because if you're not, then you're going to lose people. If you say anything that's not accurate at any point in time and people scratch their head like, well, that really didn't make sense, you are making them more skeptical of every other argument you've ever made, because they realize, oh, you're not being totally objective. You're kind of clinging to your ideology and not looking at each individual circumstance on its own merits. So you're delegitimizing your own arguments when you invoke the wrong point at the wrong time. So again, it's totally true. We should be non-interventionists. We should get out of the Middle East. We should mind our business. We should only fight wars that are defensive in nature. That's all true, but don't say that these guys who did the terrorist attack because of the cartoon did it because of foreign policy. They didn't. They did it because of the cartoon.